We can be our own worst enemy, and a lot of the times we don't even know it. Like, we can be our own worst enemy. We can be what prevents us from producing fruit, what prevents us from being connected with the Lord, what prevents us from even having a good day. We can be our own worst enemy. And a lot of times we don't even know it, because a lot of the times we underestimate the power and significance of thoughts. Thoughts are interesting because thoughts are the precursor to action. This is why, a lot of scholars throughout the years have even debated, when God created something, because of the way that the way that thoughts happen for us. We think of something. At times, it will either move us to action or move us to words, which then usually results in a new reality. You think first, and then the thought manifests itself in the external world. Sometimes the thought is quick. Sometimes it is elongated. Sometimes it is irrational. Sometimes it's incredibly logical. Sometimes it is negative. And sometimes it could be more positive. Well, I very rarely comment on much on social media. I just don't find it to be a very fruitful endeavor. I just find that a lot of what happens on social media is people dehumanize other people, because when you don't see them in their face, all that you see is a screen, and you start to talk in a way that normally you would not talk to another human. Every once in a while, about once every 4 years, something will trigger me and I won't be able to hold it in, and I will say something. It happened the other day. But it's usually not for the reasons that you think. No, it wasn't because of some political post that I just couldn't help myself. I can usually ignore political posts because, you have to get good at that if you want to stay sane in the 21st century. No, it wasn't because of some controversial theological issue. It was because of a scholar friend of mine, an up-and-coming scholar friend of mine. It was his Twitter handle, the name that he put for himself in Twitter, which you can change. I was scrolling through and I saw that he had put a post on there and he had changed his name to Danny, a bad writer. And I, without thinking, I responded to him. I tweeted him right away and I said, change your name, period. I said, I read something of yours the other day and I disagree with you. You are not a bad writer, but writing is hard. And here's why. And then he responded back. He's like, I'm sorry, I'm in the middle of my dissertation. That's just what I feel. And my response back to him was, I understand that. But your thoughts create a reality. You do not speak into reality curses over yourself or over your children or over other people. And frankly, you even need to protect your thoughts from them. This is what Jesus talks about, even, in the Sermon on the Mount, when he talks about, it's not, adultery is no longer just whenever you have an affair with another person outside of your spouse. No, adultery is even when you think about that person that way. And it reminded me of a passage in Proverbs 17. Proverbs 17, verse 22 says this: a cheerful heart is good medicine, but a crushed spirit dries up the bones. There's a parallelism there that's important for us to understand what is happening here in Proverbs, and frankly, what it is that Paul's talking about in the book of Philippians. Here in Proverbs, this is what he's saying. Listen, he says, a cheerful heart, positive thinking, positive ways of processing is good medicine. Actually, positive ways of engaging even bad situations, not positive spinning. Not saying it's not a bad situation because you found something good in it. No, saying it's a bad situation and it hurts. But then looking at it in a way in which you're going to fill your mind with more positive things than you are negative, it becomes a medicine. A medicine because you take medicine when you are wounded or whenever you are hurt. But the positive, cheerful heart is good medicine, whereas the crushed spirit, or the negativity, which you're frustrated with something at work. And so instead of handing that over to the Lord and moving on to more positive ways of building yourself up and those around you, a lot of the times we get into negative cycles of processing, reprocessing, overprocessing, and we actually make things worse. Or as the Proverbs say, a crushed spirit dries up the bones. What I love about Proverbs is it gives us good wisdom. And what's targeting is the way that we think. But Philippians does this too. Paul, at the end of his letter to Philippians, he actually exhorts them to think a certain way so that they are prepared for their actions to then follow. He says this, chapter 4, verse 8. Finally, brothers and sisters, whatever is true, you've heard this probably, right? Whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, listen to his command. Think about such things. Fill your mind with those things. And then he says this, verse 9, whatever you have learned or received or heard from me or seen in me, put it into practice. I love that. He first says, think in a certain way, and that will lead to you acting in a certain way. And then he ends it with this. And because you're thinking that way and practicing this way, it says, and the God of peace will be with you. Here's my prayer for you this week. I want to pray a blessing of peace over you. I want to pronounce that reality over you. I want to say that in Jesus, because of the Spirit and because of listening to the wisdom of the Proverbs and of Paul, that you are not evil. You are a good person that at times gets caught up in bad things. Don't allow that crushed spirit to dry up your bones and cause you to be ineffective to you and everyone around you. Don't become your own worst enemy. Instead, fill the space of your heart with cheerful things, pure things, lovely things, admirable things. If anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about that, so that your practice will follow and you will be living in the presence of a God of peace that first thought about you, then created you, and is still nurturing you through his word. I love you guys. You're going to have a good week. I pray that you have a good week, and I'll see you next week.